Today we're making a classic French dish from Anthony Bourdain that I kind of need, Bouillabaisse. It is therapeutic to create. It involves a whole lot of delicious seafood, leaving us with a wonderful broth soaked up with some crusty bread, and it may have been the best I've tried. Welcome back to Bourdain.
Everybody should know how to use a knife.
Use everything, waste nothing.
Let's start at the beginning. It ain't that hard, okay?
I hope you're doing well. My name is Mitch May, and besides an amazing girl entering my life, the days have been rather challenging, both physically and mentally for me lately. We are working through Anthony Bourdain's layout cookbook, doing every recipe for the first time. We are going to work on Bouillabaisse today. This was born from the common class, the working people. Back in the day, they had a lot of rockfish, a lot of undesirable cuts of seafood, and this is what they came up with. Bourdain has us taken care of here, saying this is as close to the real deal, whatever that might be, and he doesn't leave out it's pretty damn tasty. This is a recipe that we really just get to immerse ourselves in. I have Anthony Bourdain's cookbook linked down below in the description as usual. Let's get moving here.
As I said, just a real joy to make this recipe. I'll show you some basic prep I did, and then we'll get moving with the stew. Starting out with half an orange here, Bourdain has us use the peel. I figure let's get the juice as well, add a little extra flavor, and as a bonus we get a little snack time, which sliced orange wedges never fail. Moving on to 1 head of fennel, getting off the stems, and we're gonna slice it down the middle and get the core out. This is a little difficult for me. Shout out to Babsha giving me this tiny little santaku, if I said that right, style knife. Now, important here, we are going to save these fronds for later. Don't throw those out. And we are going to thinly slice this fennel. On the side, I did do leeks and onions as well, which you're going to see later. Get this over to the side, and a trick to keep herbs and fresh things that are delicate, nice and preserved, wrap them in a damp paper towel, toss them in a bag, plastic wrap, and they're going to hold pretty well. And now it's time to whip out our catch of the day, which costed a decent amount of money, but I don't care. I really don't. I just want to eat delicious food. So here we have a dozen nice sized fresh shrimp. Bourdain wants these to have the head on, and he would have us actually cook them with the head on. But for the sake of presentation, I'm going to reserve the shells, and you're just going to see what I do here. Next up, we are going to devein these shrimp. I thought the vein was under the shrimp. Nope, Mitch, that's not the anatomy. It is the back where we can pull out the poop shoot, whatever you want to call it. It's kind of freaking gross, but it's nature. I have eaten many deveined shrimp, so it's not a big issue for me, but I figure let's go for a chic aesthetic. Let's try to get these things as nice and pure as possible, and that includes not eating what the shrimp has already eaten. I think we got most of the stuff out, more or less, and let's move on to our fish. 1 whole red snapper, about 1.5 pounds. We got the head, we got the tail, we got everything. As you can see, I'm not too experienced touching the fishy food. The important part here is to have the fish cut into steaks, as Bourdain specifies, straight through the spine, so the bones are all intact. We're going to save the steaks and move the tail and head off with our shrimp shells, because that is where the flavor is hiding. Moving on, we got 2 more fish. Porgies, everything included, minus the guts. I try to chop them up, in the process chopping my hand better than the fish, and I can't help but notice fish always look just like absolutely annoyed that you frickin' caught them. They have utter contempt for the people that have caught them, and you're gonna eat them now, and it's how it goes. So I'm sorry, Mr. Fish, we gotta chop you up. I need your flavor, I need it all. I need the brains, the eyes, it's all going in this stew. Of note here, these 2 porgy, it doesn't have to be pretty. These are just going into a stew that is going to be strained. So chop them up, make them fit. That's all that matters. It's hard to do this for me. I guess I need to put more muscle into it, but we get it done, and it's time to head over to our pot. You can see everything is nice and minced out for us, ready to go. In our pot over medium heat, 2 ounces of olive oil. Is that exactly 2 ounces? Probably not. In we go with 2 leeks, the white part only, thinly sliced, our head of fennel that you saw earlier, and 2 small white onions, thinly sliced as well. Give this a toss, and you may be familiar with this procedure, adding a little salt just to extract some moisture, and we're going to sweat these out for about 4 to 5 minutes. While that is doing its thing, I wanted to show you the herb flower that I am very intrigued with that this recipe calls for, saffron. Oddly enough, I found this stuff in ShopRite, which inherently tells me it's probably not the best quality, but it comes in this little airtight container, reminiscent of other items, and I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. Now, Bourdain is going to have us add 3 pistols of this stuff. I couldn't help but taste it, and it's really, really interesting, aromatic, and I totally get why the recipe calls for it. That being said, me being me, I did about 6 or 7 of these little strands. Coming back to our aromatics, we just know they're ready to rock, nice and translucent. We're going to add 18 ounces of canned tomatoes. Behind this, add 4 garlic cloves, and we're going to cook this down for about 4 to 5 minutes, just releasing those flavors and reducing the mixture. Follow this up with the fun part, all the fishy scraps, the head of the snapper, the 2 white fish, the shells from the shrimp, just get it all in there. This is where the flavor comes from in this dish. Bourdain says to just roll this around for about 2 to 3 minutes, and oddly enough, my dad had some shrimp shells in the fridge, so why not? Let's toss these in there. I was amazed by something that smells so good that visually is more akin to something you'd find in a garbage disposal. But it's time to add the icing on the cake, the juice from the orange, the peel from the orange, and half a healthy shot of pernod. I didn't have that, so we go with sambuca. Now we add our sacred saffron and pour water to cover this mixture entirely with our trademark bouquet garni. This is going to hang out for about an hour and 15 minutes over a low simmer. Even Miss Julia Child knows something fun and magical is happening in this kitchen, but it's time to move on to our aioli. I cracked up at Bourdain's mention of using the old school method of mortar and pestle, but since you have a bathroom, basically you should use a food processor these days. We begin with 8 cloves of garlic and a nice little pinch of sea salt. Blend this up in a food processor and witness as Mitch encounters a problem. The garlic is not really mincing up. It is getting stuck to the sides of the container and staying there. So we got an issue. What do? Bring out the old school method of mortar and pestle. This is from my Aunt Linda. I don't know how to mortar and pestle. I don't even know if it is a verb or why there is a T in the word pestle, but I go to town mashing this garlic until it is basically a paste. Next, I add 1 egg yolk and continue to mash it into this mixture, and I'm not getting a really good feeling about this. I move our operation to a metal bowl held in place by a paper towel, forming a sort of collar, and give this a nice whisk until we get some decent foaming action. And I apologize, I didn't film adding 5 strands of saffron here, but I don't think you even want to see that because this turned into a very nice mess. The goal now is adding a little bit of oil drop by drop while whisking our mixture, and the egg yolks will hold the oil. As you can see, we've got soup. There ain't much mayonnaise consistency at all. So I tried adding another egg yolk, giving that a toss. Basically repeating the whole procedure, but instead of adding oil, we're adding our already failed emulsion. And guess what? It still didn't work. So I took 2 egg yolks and I blended them into our food processor until they got nice and foamy, and slowly incorporated our twice now failed soupy like aioli, and it didn't resolve. I don't know what happened here. If you can help me, please leave a comment, email me, pigeons, anything, because I wasn't pleased with this. I was very unsatisfied, but the flavor was on point. We call it what it is. I hit it with a little lemon juice, store it away, put it in the fridge, and save it for the next day. But we shake that off and come back to our heavenly smelling fishy soup stew mixture. We are going to strain this, really working to press this stuff as Bourdain specifies. You want to get every last drop. This is just an amazing broth that we're going to poach our seafood with. In an effort to salvage even more of this magical juice, I put it into a cheesecloth once again and really squeezed the shit out of it, and it yielded us a decent amount. I'm glad I did this. A little thing I like about these recipes, there are guidelines of course, but Bourdain isn't super particular. So throughout the recipes you may mess up, but you learn, and you learn to just kind of feel things out and to do what makes sense. Giving this a taste, I became aggressively happy with how deep and lovely this flavor was. I knew it was going to taste good, but not this good. With that, we could move on to our seafood, but I have other stuff to do in the day, so we're going to put it in the fridge and come back tomorrow. Now, I do want to show you something I found pretty amazing. The amount of gelatin we have in this broth. I've never seen such a thing, and I didn't know you could get such a result from fish. We move this back to our burner, and I want to get it, back into liquid form, but it's time to whip out our fish, our seafood, the food that we're actually going to eat rather than just strain. I splurged a bit here, getting 4 nice sized dry scallops. We have our red snapper steaks, and I did reserve 2 of the steaks from the Porgy because why not? I was just curious. Our nice sized shrimp joined the party, and we have some mussels meals as well. No seafood broth is complete without some bread. I have some toasted baguette croutons here. Bourdain does call for 8 little baby red bliss potatoes. However, I'm just going to use the whole bag. Now with these, I dump them into our broth. They're going to cook for about 10 to 15 minutes until nice and easily poked with a fork or paring knife. Bourdain would have us put these in water and cook them, but I figure why not? Let's just use our already simmering stew. While those are cooking away, I did confer with Bourdain's friend actually, Eric Repair. His cookbook, Seafood Simple, shows you how to do pretty much anything and everything regarding seafood. And in particular, it's a resource for me to poach the fish. Sliding over our hot pot of seafood stew and potatoes, I'm learning poaching is pretty simple actually. You just get a shallow amount of your liquid to cook in. Ideally, you're shooting for around 150 degrees. As you can see, we're a little high here. So as I bring the temp down, I move in with the remaining sambuca, which Bourdain would have us do, and stir the mixture to cool it down. We give our seafood a nice little sprinkling of salt on all sides, every single corner, just not over seasoning. Then delicately place these into our pot. They should not be fully covered because this will allow us to turn them and also gauge how well they're cooking. These are going to rock out for about 2 to 3 minutes on each side. Channeling my ADD and bouncing back to the potatoes. They are cooked perfectly. I'm very happy with the cook on these little guys. Ping pong back to our fish, gently turning it, and I mean gently. Repair does mention to do this gently, and it's important because the fish is delicate. Gauging our temperature, these are going to cook. It's a little high as you can see for about a minute or two, really just feeling this out. Back to our big pot. Let's add the mussels. Cooking these for about 3 to 4 minutes until they crack open. Now our fish, I'm assuming, is finished. It just has a nice touch to it, and a trick here from Eric Repair and other restaurants, of course, is to use a cake tester. Yes, a cake tester. It allows you to gauge how much resistance there is when inserting the stick into the fish. There should not be much, and in addition, after leaving the steak in the fish for about 10 seconds and placing on the back of your wrist, if it's warm, you are good to go. So we remove the rest and repeat the same procedure with our scallops, which are kind of hard to maneuver, and the little bit of tail. Our temperature is right on the money, and let's return to the mussels, which are finished. Scoop these out, place to the side, and place a little aluminum foil on. Follow this up with our shrimp. A little trick I learned from my dad, actually. Toss them in the hot broth and then take them off the heat. They're going to cook perfectly. I ain't gonna lie here, I got a little overwhelmed juggling all these different types of seafood, trying to keep them warm, but everything came out really nicely with the scallops, again, taking about 2 minutes on each side, just feeling them out. The shrimp came out really nice. Once everyone is out of their respective pools, I combine these pools, I'm sorry for using that analogy, and it's time to plate. Those lovely fennel fronds that you remember from yesterday, they have been preserved perfectly. We're going to tear off little cute pieces. These are going to garnish, give our potatoes a slice. I shoot for the purple ones for that nice contrast. Put these off to the side, rip off the aluminum foil from every dish. I like to start with the centerpieces first, if you will. The nice piece of fish, the scallops, put our potatoes where they seem to fit. I like doing this stacked little trio of shrimp. Artfully place our mussels, get some more potatoes in there to add some contrast and fill up our plate, and ladle the amazing broth on top. I'm glad the camera was not on me during this because I was smiling like a schoolgirl. Let's finish things off with our nice watery aioli on top of our baguette and top with our fronds of fennel for that nice little color pop. Everything was cooked really well for one of the few times that I've actually poached things. This dish is just like a gift basket of lovely little treats that you get to dunk and enjoy with the most flavorful seafood broth I have ever had in my life. When you enjoy this, I highly recommend first plating with your aioli crouton because it soaks up that deep, unctuous broth contrasted with the garlicky, spicy aioli. I'm still thinking about it right now. My mouth is watering a little bit just recording. Now, if you are in search for an even more elevated form of this dish, I highly recommend checking out Parker Hallberg's version. He's a fellow food tuber that I reached out to personally. I'll leave you with the link to his video right here to your right. Thank you for spending your time with me. This was another chill episode of Back to Bourdain.
Stay organized and clean up after yourself. You do the best you can.